What's going on, guys? Rodent44 out here at Fort Crosby today in the CowanSim MD500. We're going to be taking a little bit of a trip over to the new work in progress bush strips that I've been working on here the last, well, however long it's been. I honestly haven't been keeping track. I think it's been about a month, but yeah, all the days kind of rolled together after a little while. So without further ado, it's just a short little hop over there. It's going to take us no more than maybe 4 or 5 minutes to get over there. We'll fact check that near the end here. But let's get going. Starting pump comes on. Anti-collision position lights come on. Key comes on. Alright. Avionics off for now. We are at idle cutoff on the throttle. Collective check. Sure, our fuel is on. And we're going to look for 12% on the N1. Where that's at, right there. Before we introduce fuel. I'm not sure why, but after the last update, unless it's something I keep doing wrong, I always get the spool down or failed start sound, even though it does catch and spool up. So I'm not sure if that's something to do with this last update or if it's something I'm doing. Either way, it fires up, it works. We're going to be doing a doors off light today because, well, I mean, why not? Spooling up here, we'll go ahead and get our avionics and generator coming online, as well as our landing light down here on the collective. And we'll go ahead and get our GPSs going here, looking for satellites. Transponder is already on altitude, squawking VFR, and we're not even going to be dealing with radios today. Alright, so we got a direct crosswind. The winds are pretty light, so it shouldn't be too bad picking up out of here. We're going to do a little bit of a hover taxi down towards the end of the runway there, and then we'll come back this direction here as we depart. That way we get a nice long run. Plenty of time to build up airspeed and altitude. And we're not going to fly too high as we come out of here today. We'll stay pretty low over the trees. Alright, let's go ahead and bring our RPM up to flight RPM. Right, final checks. Torque looks good, oil temperature is in the green. Amps are in the green, oil pressure is in the green, RPM and turbine temperature are in the green. Timber is set. Lights are on, start pump is on, generator's on. Actually, I don't remember if you're supposed to leave the start pump running in flight or not. Unless I'm blind, I don't even see it on the checklist. So we're just going to leave it on the entire time because, well, it's a sim and we're not going to burn out the pump anytime soon like we would in real life. So no harm done. Alright, we're going to see how well I can pick her up today. Been flying a lot of bush planes here the last year and a half. Not a lot of time in helicopters anymore, so we're getting used to it all over again. But the latest update with the 500 here feels pretty darn good. It's definitely a lot more stable and not nearly as twitchy as what it used to be. So we get got left pedal coming in here. We're just picking up easy on the collective. Just going to need ever so slightly, a little bit of back pressure, and then left pressure on the cyclic as well. There we go. I always have issues hovering this helicopter, finding the right power setting for hover. Mainly that's to do with just my hardware here, because I'm not using any sort of helicopter hardware. I'm just using the Velocity 1 flight stick. So there's a very fine line on the throttle slider where it holds a nice hover, where it climbs too much, and when it descends too rapidly. A little sloppy today. We're going to go a little forward. Just gradually pick up airspeed. Pulling some more collective as we go. And we are off. So as I mentioned, I've been working on these airstrips here for about the last month, I think now. And it's 2 bush airstrips, both are dirt runways. If you have seen the video already on the channel, I posted the video here last month with the de Havilland Beaver, doing some pattern work, doing some landings out of one of the strips. At the time, I had not even started on the second airstrip, but now the second airstrip is nearing completion. All the modeling is done for it. Most of the object placement is done. I just have some tweaking to go back and do, and probably some additional objects to place. And then I got to come back to the original airstrip, which was featured in that video, because yeah, I started working on the second one, and then I have been kind of neglecting the first one. So I got to go back and start adding some features on that one, do some more modeling, as well as for the general area as well. This one is similar coverage area to Fort Crosby back there. It's also got a nice big lake where you can land float planes and stuff on it. It's going to have, you know, several cabins and stuff around the lake. And also, new to this is it's going to have additional wildlife walking around. So I have models for moose, wolf, fox, and I have a wild boar now, which are done as world scripts and walk around. So we'll go and we'll check out some of those as we fly in here. So we'll see if we can spot them. Several of them do cross over the runways, but also just walk around the general area as well. So you have, let's see what animals we have there. We got moose, bear, fox, wolf, and I guess, yeah, I placed the hog as well, so we got the wild boar up there as well. So we basically have all the animals that you would typically see in the area, you know, minus like deer and other smaller critters. Which, I mean, I do have deer models technically that I could put in, but they're not the right deer. And, well, I don't really feel like painting a deer right now. Maybe eventually we'll get those added in if we can make the models look a little bit more realistic for the area. But for the time being, I'm pretty happy with what we have. It adds a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Liveliness to the area. and we're about at the halfway point, or just over the halfway point here. It's not too far of a hop. Basically, we just got to cross over this little ridge that we're crossing over now. And you can kind of see out there in front, there's you got the mountain range that kind of ends there on the left-hand side, and right where that last hill there is on the left-hand side, if you look down from that, you'll see some like bearish looking areas. That's basically the aiming point we're aiming for. But we're looking too far ahead, and the airstrips are actually right here. Here's the big lake coming up on the left-hand side here. So our first airstrip is actually going to be off of our right-hand side here slightly. We'll go ahead and we'll overfly that. So yeah, overall it's a pretty quick trip from Fort Crosby. So we got a nice little line of airstrips coming out here. We got the cabin strip, we got Snowflake Lake, Fort Crosby. Of course, we got all the other freeware airports I've done around that area. And now we have this one. So some pretty nice little detailed airports in the same general area. As we come over top of the first airstrip here with a little bit of a lag spike. Now as we come over this area, we'll keep our eye out for a bear and a moose, because there are both of those walking around this general area. Can be quite hard to spot at times, but there is one spot I do know there is a moose for sure, and that is in this marshy area right here. We'll slow up here and we'll see if we can spot them. So I do believe he appears to be maybe in the tree line right now, because I don't see him out here immediately in the field. We'll hover around here for a second to see if he pops out anywhere. So I don't remember. I might have placed all these guys. I don't remember their exact paths though. I know he spawns out here in the field. He kind of comes over this way, and he passes over in front of the lake in between a couple of the cabins that'll be out here. So we'll kind of go through the gap in the trees here. Slow up some more as we come to the lake edge. Tail kick around here. And just a friendly note that everything you see in this video today is still quite a work in progress. So obviously, as you can see off the nose there, there's some buildings that are missing. And also, there's the moose. Yeah, there he is. What a stud. And like I said, they're just on a, all the animals are on a predetermined path, and they'll just walk around on that path. It takes them, I don't know, I haven't really timed it. I think it takes them about 10-ish minutes to do the circuit. It's quite a big area that he covers, actually. Alright, well, since we found that moose, let's journey on over to... Well, let's go back over to the first airstrip and take a look at that. This one really has not changed that much since the last video I did, which I'll put that video up in the top right hand corner here. If I put an end card or a end screen on this video, then I'm sure it'll be on that as well. Or, you know, it's just the last video I uploaded, so not incredibly hard to find. Pretty short video. But yeah, if you see that video, it's not much different looking than that, because I really haven't worked on it any more since then. But we'll save the second airstrip for last year, because I've done a lot of work on that, and nobody has seen that one yet. Well, you know, besides some photos floating around, I think. Honestly, at this point, I don't remember if I've showcased it or not. I think I did. So we'll just come to a little bit of a stop here, and we'll touch down. Yeah, not my best, not my worst. So one thing that you'll notice about both these airstrips, besides being dirt and surrounded by a lot of vegetation, is that each one is actually, or each runway is actually on an incline. This one's got a fairly steep incline, but it is a very gradual incline over most of the runway, so you don't really notice it until you're like in the cockpit and you're taxiing up it. Then you can notice the angle. Also, on both sides of the runway, you also have a drainage ditch that runs along the side. So, obviously, if you're flying a aircraft and you're taxiing aircraft up that, you got to be careful that you're not getting stuck or pulled into one of those ditches, getting too close to the side of the runway. We'll go ahead and we'll pick back up here, and we'll go up towards the top. Now, there are currently 2 animals that I have positioned here at this airstrip that may be subject to change in the future. We have down here near the bottom, which I don't think I saw it coming in anywhere, but there should be a wolf. Basically, the wolf will walk by the cabins over there, across the end of the runway, comes up this vegetation here at the side of the runway, goes through that clearing in the trees, or the gap in the trees there, and then it'll come on up, cross over the runway, up the hill, circle back around. And then you also have, whoop, there he is right there, just in time. Yep, so you got the wolf here crossing the runway, and you will also have at the top of the runway, as we swing back around here, give them a nice little low buzz, dust them off. Here at the top of the runway is where the wild boar spawns. So the wild boar actually spawns off into the vegetation. I can't fly over to where it spawns because there's trees there, but it's over this direction, and then it'll walk through the vegetation here, kind of crosses the top of the runway here a little bit, and then it goes into the trees. And then you'll also see it come out down the runway just a little bit here, I believe, kind of in this area, just on the other side of these trees, and it'll cross directly over the runway and start its loop back. So yeah, it's got a little bit shorter of a path as far as the other animals go. I tried to set up everything so you'd have a pretty good chance of seeing at least one of the animals every time you're here. So the animals, you know, they cross over the runway and stuff pretty soon on after you load into your flight. And then, like I said, they walk around for a little while. So you always have multiple opportunities to see them, just depending on, you know, how long you hang out at the airstrip before taking off, or how long you hang around the airstrip doing patterns or something like that. If you fly around the area quite a bit, and your chance of seeing most of the animals is pretty good. So, one more thing before we leave here. just to note that most of the buildings here, except for maybe the small cabins, are placeholders. So this cabin here, you'll notice that that's a building from Fort Crosby. I just threw something in to have something. So it's probably not going to stay. I'm planning on making a custom model for this area. But other feature that's new here is I've finally gotten around to creating some flag models, which is kind of hard to see, I guess, from the hover here. But they are all custom animations, dynamic with wind direction, wind speed. So, you know, depending on how high the wind speed is, it'll flap more or less, stand out straighter, or, you know, lay down. Also has detailed texture on the flag. Not going to be able to see that from the helicopter, but if you get up close and personal with it, you'll actually be able to see kind of a fabric grain to it. I spent more time than I'd like to admit on that, so I'm kind of done looking at that. We're going to go over this direction now. Let's see if we can find the bear. There should be a bear in this area, as well as a moose here somewhere. They are... I don't know. I've had a lot of difficulty spotting these guys, actually. They spend a lot of time in the trees, and they can be quite difficult to spot. So, it's a bit of luck if you'll be able to see these or not. And they're placed, you know, between the two airstrips, so if you're flying back and forth between them, you at least have a chance of seeing something out here. And as I build up this area some more, you know, I may tweak some stuff. I may tweak their paths. I may add some more animals. Obviously, I don't want to go too overboard with it, but I want you to be able to see something while you're out here. Some sort of life walking around. I'm not seeing the bear or the moose. Oh, actually, here we go. What is this, the bear? That is the bear. A little bit of a descending turn here. This is a grizzly bear. Yep, nothing new on these guys though. This one's been around for a while. It's the default Zobo bears, which I've just pulled into my own library. And really the only reason I did that was I wanted to make them hibernate during the winter. So that's really the only difference between my bears and the Zobo bears. Exact same model, except yeah, mine hibernate. Alright. Let's head over to the secondary airstrip, and we'll do a little bit of a turn this direction here, as we're actually flying alongside it right now, and we'll do an approach over the northern end of the runway. So let's go out this way just a little bit. These airstrips are only 1 mile apart, so it's a very, very quick hop. The runway headings are also pretty much on the same heading, so it makes it pretty easy to transition from taking off on one and landing on the other, with really the only main challenge being that they're not really ideally set up to do that, in the sense that you can take off downhill at the airstrip we just departed from, but if you landed, if you made your approach in like we're doing now and landed on this airstrip, you'd actually be landing downhill. So you'd have that going against you. So we'll come into a little bit of a hover here at the end of the runway and take a quick little look around. And as I had mentioned before, this is the most complete of the two airstrips, so a lot of the detailing and vegetation is done for this one. Obviously there's going to be some changes, most likely, before release, but what you see is now is Yeah, it's probably going to be pretty close to what you get in the end. Got some limbs stacked off here on the side. Then also some new models here on the approach. We got some fallen trees. These are all done as groupings this time around, so a lot better on performance. All tiling textures as well as the moss detail textures on them. Here we'll put the nose on up in here. Let's see, where do I want to sit down? Maybe up here, huh? Not really a good spot to set down here. It's all pretty uneven terrain, but we're just going to pick a spot. We might have landed on a log. Who knows? Ah! Just barely. We almost clipped it. But, yep, as you can see, nice detail texturing on these. The old dead wood with moss on it. Like I mentioned, it's tiling textures for the base wood as well as the moss texture on it. So basically what that allows me to do is share textures between many of the models. So it's, you know, each set of logs doesn't have its own texture set, which reduces the texture memory overhead with a little bit of a trade-off on draw calls, which don't really make as much of a difference in the sim. But let's go ahead and we'll pick back up here. And we're going to do a lap around the lake, and we'll make an approach in over by the buildings. So we'll kind of just head on out this direction and make a turn to the left. Because I got a nice little spot over here by the cabin I actually like to land the helicopter at. Little confined area. We'll just keep the turn coming here, and we'll have a lake popping up pretty soon. There it is. And we're going to start slowing down again. When we see the cabin coming up here, we're going to basically land on the left-hand side of the shed where that dirt patch is there. We'll just nose around and make sure we don't hit any trees. And it's a pretty nice approach just because it's a nice steep slope down to the lake. So there's not really any chances of striking your tail coming in. All you got to really watch out for is obstacles around the area. Alright, let's walk her forward a little bit here. Touchdown yet. And that's probably good. Classic drop. Now let's go ahead and we'll roll the RPM down here for a second. Just to get rid of a little bit of the noise. These blades make a hell of a racket, that's for sure. And yeah, we'll go ahead and hop out here for a second. Why not? So this area's come together pretty nicely. Got some new objects in here. Everything here is custom modeled. Actually based off of real estate photos, so everything you're seeing right now, except for a couple of items, are, I mean, yeah, 90-95% realistic. I always like to keep a little bit of creativity in there, but this shed here is pretty much like you'd see it on the real property. It's got the antlers up there. It's got this box for the stove inside on the side. Coloring and materials are all pretty much the same. It does have 55-gallon drums in front of it. The collars are pretty similar as well. This little outhouse is based off of real life as well as this wood shelter. And then, of course, the cabin here is, it's pretty darn close to real life. A little bit of creative liberty here and there, but for the most part, it's just as how you would see it at the actual airstrip if you were to visit here in real life, or if you were to, you know, be able to find the real estate listing online. So Pretty nice little old beat up backcountry shack here. And here's a creative liberty, I guess. I can't talk about this wind turbine too much yet, what it's for. But I will say that this was not built for this scenery. But it's too good of a model to pass up. So just to have a little bit of extra movement and something going on in the scenery, I decided to put a little wind generator out here. And this one does spin faster, obviously, with wind speed, and it's directional as well, so you can tell wind direction from it. It'll swivel into the wind. So just a little bit extra pizzazz out here. Then as far as this bulldozer goes, well, I didn't model this, I bought this one. But I needed a bulldozer out here. There's actually one that they keep here that's not exactly this model, but it's an older style like this is. And I think this is based off of an old cat. But yeah, overall, pretty nice little backcountry spot here. So let's hop back into the helicopter and we'll go hover over by the other end of the runway for a minute. Then we'll shut down for a few minutes and we'll see if we can spot, or if we can hear the fox. And I'm actually surprised we haven't heard him yet because he's pretty loud. So let's go ahead and bring the RPM back up. Back up the flight RPM. And we're just going to pick up real easy here. We're going to try to walk backwards just a little bit. Clear the trees. Just picking up easy on the collective. Wait for us to get some motion. Get it under control. And then we lift off. Give a little bit of backwards motion here so we clear the trees and the buildings around us. No backup camera on this one, so we're completely guessing where we're going. But I know our area behind us is clear. And, you know, we'll sneak in behind the trees here. We'll fly this little marsh area down here a little bit. We'll just keep her nice and slow as we come around. Do have to watch out for these trees here. And we'll get our nose pointed over into the wind. And we'll just come up here and we'll land over here in the vegetation. Or I guess in the dirt next to it. Oh, a little bit of a balloon there. Come on now. There we go. Not bad. And we'll roll the RPM back off. Doesn't really make too much sense to keep the big spinning fan going, as well, there's not a whole lot left to see around the area right at this second. But we will shut down here and we'll take another look around the airstrip, look for the wildlife, and then we'll call it good for this video. So we'll go ahead and get our lights off here. We don't really need our avionics, so we'll turn those off. We're just letting our RPM come down a little bit. Now normally you would do a little bit of a cool off period here. In the sim we don't really have to do that. We're actually, let's see, we're actually in the green for all of our temps, so we could technically shut down right now if we wanted to, which I think we're going to do. So we'll pull the fuel, get rid of the governor, and roll the throttle all the way down. Turn the ignition off, and we're going to keep the fuel pump running for a second here so we can keep fuel flowing through and lubricating the engine. And once we get the generator out light, we'll go ahead and turn the generator off. Now, I'm flying this helicopter a little bit redneck style because, yeah, I didn't read the manual like most people. So I'm just kind of going off of memory here from what I remember. I'm sure if there's any diehard MD500 fans out there, I probably did something out of order. But, yeah, I'm not flying one in real life, so I don't have the opportunity to blow up a $1 million engine. So I'm not really concerned. Generator comes off, and we'll go ahead and turn the start pump and the battery off. And as our rotor RPM gets slow enough here for rotor brake, we can actually do one thing, one little trick that I learned from flying the Bell 47, which does not have a rotor brake. And you pull on a little bit of collective. You just need to do it really easily, because obviously you don't want to take off again. And also it helps if you wait for your RPM to spin down enough. And obviously we're slow enough on the RPM that we have no chance of taking off, so we can actually pull in full collective if we want, which is changing the pitch of the blades, adding more drag, and thus slowing them down. It's a little bit of a helpful tip if you don't want to wait a super long time to be able to turn the rotor brake on. So we're pretty slow now. We can go ahead and put the collective down. We'll go ahead and pull in the rotor brake. There we go. Done. Hop on out, get the camera situated. And I have, oh, well, as I say that, there's the moose. And there should be a fox coming up here at some point as well. We will probably hear him before we see him. So this dude here, he just comes on wandering out of the trees over there. And you gotta watch out for this dude, because he does not care about you. He will walk directly up the center of the runway for the entire length of the runway. So he is very much an obstacle that will not get out of the way. So as you're coming in to land at this airstrip, make sure you're doing a flyover, at least a flyby, to check the runway for animals, because they can become a factor. And yeah, we're not going to follow him all the way up the runway, because we'd be here for 10 minutes doing that. He's pretty slow. And also, on a serious note, I'm back and forth on this. I may move his pathing off to the side of the runway just so it's not as much of a factor. In the long term, I'd love to figure out how to get him to actually move out of the way with a bounding box. So if you like came within a certain distance from him, you know, he would start, you know, turning away from your user aircraft, basically. I know it's possible. I haven't looked into how to do it. And the scripting's not really laid out that great in the SDK. Actually, it's not really documented at all. Yeah. 3 years later. But we'll figure it out. Maybe. Alright. Where is my fox? There's the fox. Yeah, so I mentioned this guy here can be heard. And I did do a wise sound for this fox as a little bit of an experiment, just to see how it worked out. So every so often he'll actually call. And I think when you first spawn in, it does it within the first 3 minutes of spawning in. So when you spawn here, you have a pretty good chance of hearing him call, and then it's after that initial call, it's about every 6 minutes he calls again. So normally, once he gets on the backside of the trees here, he'll let off a call. So we should be able to hear him if we stick around here for at least another couple of minutes. But while we're waiting on that, take a look at some of the vegetation here. Obviously, if any of you guys have flown on the Fort Crosby scenery here, a lot of this vegetation probably looks similar to you. And that's because, yeah, it's all reused. There's not a sense in making new vegetation for every project. And in all honesty, what this project was supposed to be was it was supposed to be a bit of a speed run. This to see just how fast I could crank out 2 very high quality airstrips. And I made a lot of progress in the first couple of days of it, but some things changed going down that path, which will become a little bit more apparent in the future next year. So I had to pull back from that aggressive schedule just a little bit. And this is kind of, this has been not necessarily a side project, but it's been a secondary project that I've been working on. Let's see. I guess we can just continue on up the runway here as we're waiting on the fox. Just give you guys a nice little, I don't know, it's a little bit early for a first look at the scenery, but it's, not planning on changing a whole lot here. So, like I said before, what you see is pretty much what you get. Ever since I've done the Fort Crosby scenery, I've been putting a lot more thought into how I'm doing some things in my workflow. And a lot of it's coming down to, sharing textures and stuff like that. Not necessarily having separate texture sets for every single thing, just because when it comes to Xbox, it can't really handle it that well. It's actually gotten pretty bad over the last several sim updates here. So it's made me really start to think more about how I'm doing things in sceneries. I'm moving away from doing, more individually placed objects to doing, clusters of objects, baked clusters or groupings. So pretty much everything you see here is a group of objects. So there's nothing single placed. All the trees are all groups. The rocks are groups. The shrubs and bushes and vegetation's all groups. So basically what that's doing is it's really cutting down on the number of individual placement draw calls that you have in the scenery, which is the number one, as far as I'm aware, as far as I've been able to tell, factor when it comes to performance in this sim. And that has been slowly degrading more and more, as I said, over every update. So every update it gets just a little bit worse. So yeah, I'm sitting here at this airport, and I think this will show up with the recording method I have selected, not that one, FPS. I'm sitting here at this airstrip, and I'm hitting 60 FPS. If I was back at Fort Crosby, stationary, I can hit 60 FPS, but on the move, I'm maybe hitting like 55. So at this airstrip here, I can spin all around and whatever, and I dip down to 58, which I'm V-synced anyways, so that's pretty normal for me. I assume that's normal for everybody else too. But it's pretty rock steady here, and it goes for both airstrips. So it's making a difference for sure. And for all this rambling, I was really hoping that fox would call. But he's making me look like an idiot right now because he's not doing it, and I'm starting to wonder if I broke something. I don't think I did, because literally nothing has changed since the last time I flew, and I did hear him last time I flew. Yet, alas, he still has not returned my call. Well, shoot, I was, I'm almost out of stuff to talk about. I was kind of hoping the Fox would call, but, yeah, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get a call here in a second. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to sit right here, and through the, the magic of editing, whenever he decides to call, we'll just cut to that part of the video. There we go. Way off in the distance, but there you have it. It called. I guess I can end the video now. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Yeah, whenever that is. Could be a month, could be a year. At this point, who knows? Roadrunner 44, over and out.